The story begins with a narration saying that in the year 2093 monsters attacked humanity out of nowhere. 2 years later crime increased a lot, with crime happening everywhere and humanity self-destructing. A certain time later the first superhero of society appeared, known as Zero, a very brave guy who wiped out all monsters, including the king of monsters, from the face of the earth without any difficulty. He also arrested the criminals of the world, and following in his footsteps other superheroes began to emerge, and in the year 2100 the rate of crime and monsters in all countries began to decrease, finally bringing peace to the world. But he mysteriously disappeared from the world without a trace, and 5 years later they announced the 5th film about Zero. A person seeing the announcement of this film comments that people couldn't know that the great hero who saved the world and disappeared was kicked out of his house by his little sister for not having a job. That is, he is the Zero himself who disappeared, and our protagonist of history. After all, that a criminal appears at a show nearby attacking the band, but they are Class B superheroes who defeat this criminal easily. After beating him, the leader of this band gives the criminal the opportunity to flee, but the protagonist handcuffs him so that does not happen. The scene cuts showing that this criminal and his gang were actually paid to attack that Band of Heroes concert just for them to defeat the criminals and thus increase their popularity and move up in class. But this criminal thinks he was deceived by them and shows his true power, attacking and defeating all of them. At that moment a Class E hero appears, but obviously not able to defeat him, and gets beaten up. When he was about to die, the protagonist interferes and, using a kind of giant hammer, defeats him with one just hit. A top 3 heroine of the city arrives there asking what happened, but when that hero Rank and tries to explain, the protagonist had already disappeared. He returns home and sees his sister expelling a guy at the base of the beating. He asks why she didn't like him if he was a rich guy, and she says that her heart belongs to Zero. Little does she know that Zero is her brother. Then that E-rank hero called Zhan Chen appears there inviting him to be a hero. He denies it at first, but ends up accepting it later. So they go to the Hero Association, and there he takes the test to become a hero. This test consists of him holding out for 3 minutes against the examiner, who is a very strong rank B hero, but he provokes this hero saying he was going to defeat him. The two start to fight, and soon the examiner sees that he was no small thing. He uses all his power against the protagonist in the hope of defeating him, but ends up losing the fight with a knee in the face of the protagonist. So he passes the physical exam and passes the written test, saying he was screwed, and he really was, because the examiner wakes up later in the hospital and a heroine shows him the answers that the protagonist had in the written test. He replied everything was wrong, and he took only 13 points on the test, which led him to be placed in the worst rank of all, the E rank. This hero who invited him to be his partner then laughed at his ranking, being that he is also an E rank, so doesn't make much sense. And then the scene cuts showing a group of heroes complaining to a boy for not having let some henchmen escape. According to them, if a villain escapes, then he will cause more destruction, thus increasing the chance of them going up in class when defeat him. Bunch of bastards. They throw this boy on the ground, but the protagonist catches him in the air and goes to confront them for having also defamed Zero. In the middle of the bullshit, an apparently very angry hero appears there and scares them. Your name is 13, and he is known for spreading fear among all the heroes. The reason is, he brings bad luck to everyone who is close to him. Without knowing this, the protagonist invites him to join his group. He explains that his power it's just having a lot of bad luck, but sometimes there's a lucky moment too, like for example when Zero saved him as a child. He simulates Zero's punch on a pillar, and that punch cracks the pillar, making the whole structure fall on top of everyone, including that guy with glasses who was being teased earlier and joined the group. The scene cuts to a while later with the four on top of a roof watching a group of criminals carrying biochemical weapons. These criminals were selling a kind of giant goo monster that could be controlled by them but are prevented by the heroes who come to fight against them. Combining their powers, they disarm the criminals who send the monster to attack them. They see that they can't defeat it, so they call the protagonist, who is back there, to take care of him. He takes his gun and hits him as if he had playing baseball. The problem is that this shot sends the monster to the city. Look at the bad luck of 13 there. And only after that the protagonist sees the mess he made. After that he appears in the city to stop the monster, and Zhan Chen, I think that's his name, he appears there tired as hell and attacks the monster. His first attack goes wrong and he is pulled out of the monster by the protagonist. But when we the spectators, are underestimating him, he surprises by going up to the monster, dodging all its attacks and advancing towards it, being able to finish the monster alone without anyone's help. Everyone gathers around them to celebrate, but when they see what was happening, they see Zan Chen on top of a little girl. I suspect that of course he didn't do anything to her. Basically they take her home wondering who she is, and a little while later the cover plays with that top 3 heroine from the beginning of the anime called Zuram at the door. She enters and shows a device that contains information about this girl. They press play on the device, and together with the images and videos contained in it, she reveals that in the past there was an experiment that involved children. They captured and experimented with them, and some failed the experiment, which is just a nice word for dying. Knowing that, the protagonist gets really pissed off. So pissed off that he releases a powerful aura in the entire room, suffocating everyone who was there. Until they call his name and he comes back to himself. Then Zuram says that a person from within the association is involved in this and in the crimes and evils of the city, this person being none other than the director of the association himself. Is this the plot twist you want? Then take it. The scene cuts with the protagonist's group and his sister talking. She pulls his ear thinking that he kidnapped this girl or something, but soon she understands that they adopted her, so she takes her by the hand and goes on a store to buy clothes for her. The prota's group says they will wait outside, and the reason they said that is because they knew they were being followed. They remember what Shu Aaron said earlier about professional killers coming to hunt them down to recover the girl, which was a very important thing for the villainous director of the association. These assassins were not exactly assassins, but those D-rank heroes from before. They beat up for the protagonist's group that goes back to the store where they were waiting before. The protagonist's sister convinces him to take the girl to live in their house, and he accepts with fear since that would mean putting his sister in danger. The head of the hero association is angry because his assassins failed, but another guy who was there tells him relax and wait for the good news since he sent people to fulfill this mission, one of them being a girl who goes after Xiaozhan to kill him but ends up using a hygiene sword he had against him that removes his clothes. She leaves because of so much embarrassment. He doesn't understand anything that happened, but life goes on. Already in the protagonist's house, a murderer was lying in wait on top of a tree watching over his house, but little did he know that the protagonist himself was after him, watching everything the entire time. He brags that he is a rank A assassin and one of the strongest in the association, and begins to fight the protagonist, who does not give him any chance of winning, making him use an insanity serum that makes him transform into a monster and grants him the power of an S rank. He brags about his speed in the middle of the fight but gets beaten by the prota. Even after taking this serum, he regenerates several times, but continues to get beaten, until a point where the protagonist turns things around after defeating him, but he says he wouldn't get tired of killing that girl and his sister too. At that moment the protagonist turns to him very pissed off for having threatened his family and seriously fights against him, launching an attack so strong that it kills him easily, in addition to destroying half the forest. Episode 4 ends with a flashback of Zulin telling him that one day the director of the association would contact the genetic evolution company that did the experiments with the children, and that this would be the chance to stop them, warning him that this would be a full-scale fight. The scene cuts with them making a plan of attack against the president of the association. He wanted to release the insanity serum in the city, which obviously was bad, so they wanted to prevent it. And they have the help of a heroine, and other heroes who would help in the fight. Time for the fight. After planning, they go to the forest, gathering the whole team, and are hidden waiting for Zulin's signal, but a group of muscular heroes simply decides to act on their own and start the battle before her signal. The villains go after them, who start to fight. While they buy time against the henchmen, the protagonist fights a big fish of the association, Zulin against the president, Xiaozhan against the girl who invaded his house and left him naked that day. This rank A heroine and the guy with glasses whose name I forgot against a traitor hero who is the strongest in H City, which is the city where they live. Basically each one has their opponent, and the episode unfolds showing these battles. To finish the video, in episode 6, we see the guys who were fighting all defeated by the villains, except the protagonist, who made the guy he was fighting use this insanity serum to try to defeat him, but in reality that doesn't help much because the protagonist keeps hitting him anyway and defeats him easily, calling him weak. On top of that, the scene cuts with Xiaozhan defeated, talking to that girl who defeated him. He asks if that was really what she wanted to stay in this life and end up dying or leaving it, and ends up convincing him to leave his weapon and stop fighting. In the fight between the guy with glasses and the ice mine against the hero hunter, the guy with glasses is beaten a lot to try to protect the girl who was trapped in a barrier but ends up being passed out by him. The girl, seeing that he risked his life to protect her, gets angry at this villain and launches an attack that makes him be frozen, and as if that were not enough, the ice breaks, killing he. Already in Zuelin's fight, she freezes the president, who takes a kick in the face of the protagonist soon after, making him use the serum of insanity also to try to win. He brags, saying that he is at the level of an S rank as well as that other guy, but it doesn't matter why he takes the same stick and is defeated by the prota. After that, everyone gathers to celebrate, and that ice girl appears there telling them to help the guy with glasses. Then comes the episode credits showing that it's over here. And it's really over. That was the summary of the first 6 episodes of Hero Return. If you want a part 2, don't forget to leave a like and comment. Closing. That's it, bro.